As you can imagine, works at the home garden have really taken over recently. Well, since we moved in, putting in all the new beds, clearing up, building the polycrub, so much going on. But I'm back at the allotment garden today, and I've got to plant my first early potatoes, do a few jobs on the plot, and also just have a look around and just absorb the peace and serenity that's up here. And there are so many plants starting to come up. It's really an exciting time of the year. I came up today not only for those gardening jobs, but because I'm meeting some representatives from UNESCO Biosphere Isle of Man, and they're coming to do a little video promo for their awards this year because I won one of their awards last year. And this is the award. I set up a little area over here with my book, and I've won the award partially to do with my book, also to do with my YouTube and social media. And I won it because I like to share ways that we can use our growing spaces to not only cultivate really useful plants, but also cultivate biodiversity and to invite nature in, basically. My book, by the way, it's not just for women, but it does focus on women gardeners, not just myself, quite a few others, and what we do with our gardens, the types of plants that we grow, how to use them. There's some gardening projects in there. And also lists upon lists of different plants that you can grow for herbal medicine, for soap making, for edible flowers, for even cleaning the home. So it's a really useful book, and I think a really beautiful one as well. A couple of winters ago, I dug up, divided, and replanted the rhubarb. And last year it did grow, but it was pretty spindly and weak, and so I left it alone, and that's what you do the first year after dividing and replanting rhubarb. This year, quite a few more stems, quite a few more buds, so I might be able to get a small harvest off of it. From next year, I'll be able to harvest quite a few more of the stems, and I will harvest all through the spring, and then once summer comes around, I'll leave it alone so that it can absorb energy from the sun and build up its reserves for next year. The raspberries are coming up green and strong in this bed, and down below the garlic is all up. Quite a few of them are elephant garlic, and then I've got both hardneck and softneck garlic more towards the middle and bottom. I put in some new strawberry plants last year, and they look pretty small, but they will start growing. And yesterday I came and did a bit of work as well, and I laid down some of that compost mulch there, and that will help to feed the soil and the plants and help to keep moisture in. This lower bed has a few different types of perennials in it, and in the center is 9-star broccoli. I grew it last year, got a really good harvest. It looks like it's struggling a bit. It's a bit spindly. This is my first time growing it, but it looks relatively healthy on the top. So hopefully next month I'll get another harvest. The backbone of my allotment is made up of perennial plants. Plants that grow from year to year, like shrubby rosemary and lavender, chives, which are just green and about to flower right now. Even plants that are not perennial, that are maybe biennial, like perpetual spinach and chard. This celery down here, it can overwinter here, and so when they start to grow again in spring, they can create an extra early harvest. The last time that we came up to my plot, I showed you my little ponds. Of course, we'll go down and have a look at what's going on with the larger ponds, but inside mine there are loads of tadpoles now, and there is quite a bit of pond weed. And this is just a given with small ponds. You do have to manage it over the year, take out as much as you can by hand. I'm going to leave this for now for the tadpoles because they are feeding off of that plant life, that algae that's in here. But also, I find that if I try to take any of it out right now, some of those tadpoles will get entangled in it and I don't want to hurt them. So it's in here for now. I'll take a little bit out at a time. And actually, when these tadpoles get a little bit bigger, they can actually benefit from a little extra protein. And so throwing in a bit of mince, so minced beef or other type of meat is actually really good for them. They will devour it and that will help them to grow legs and hop out of the pond. I've not actually come down to the community pond since we first put it in. I've just been so busy at home, but I know that the folks here, including Steve T, who has taken this on as his passion project, have been busy planting it up with various types of aquatic plants. And I see some things sticking up from the ground, and you can see also that they've done some work putting some sandbags around the edges, reducing the amount of black plastic visible. It is a good size pond, isn't it? And as soon as it starts filling in with plants around the edges and inside, it's going to have so much life inside. Let's have a look. Oh yes, we've got some plants down here. This is the shallow area, the shallow end. And it looks like there are some stones in there too. That'll create some really good cover for future tadpoles and frogs and other aquatic animals. I've brought some first early potatoes to plant today, and they are a type called Red Duke of York. They are, I think, the only red-skinned first early potato. There's some oca in here too. I found that while preparing the soil. They've got some really good chits on them, and chitting new potatoes helps to speed up the time it takes for the plants to grow and then produce a crop, which usually takes about 10 to 12 weeks after you plant these. New potatoes, so first early potatoes, at least here you can start planting them on St. Patrick's Day, and then you plant them in late March going into early April, and then you plant second earlies and main crops in April. And the idea is that you stagger your harvest. So you have your first earlies first, which you harvest small and you eat them with the skin on. The second earlies can be as smaller, they can be a little bit bigger, and then your main crops later on in the year. Now, you will see that this year I'm going to be planting quite a few potatoes in the allotment here and in the bed in the center, and that is because I'm trying to do a lot more low maintenance plants here, especially while I'm trying to get the new home garden sorted. I've done a little bit of an unusual digging prep for the early potatoes because I don't want to disturb the borage that's in this bed. I want them to stay there. And so I've done 3 short rows on the far side. I've done a small one just above this white borage and a couple of small ones here. And I think that that is space for all of the new potatoes. I think there's 21. So I'm spacing them about 2 feet apart in rows, and then when they are in the rows themselves, about 1 foot 18 inches apart. And that's plenty of space for new potatoes. I've started on this end and I'm placing the seed potatoes in the trench first, spacing them out about, again, 1 foot 18 inches apart, and putting them in so that the chit, the sprout, is facing upwards. If you put them upside down, then that sprout won't have an easy way to grow up because that is the start of potato foliage. So it's kind of common sense. Put them in and then you just cover them up. And as they grow, you want to draw earth or compost up over the ridges just so that the potatoes that are forming underneath don't turn green. That is the first job done. I've marked the ends of the rows with just a stick. I know that in this entire bed, it's only Red Duke of York, and they're gonna pop up all around the borage. Now, as far as aftercare, I don't tend to water potatoes, but if it is really dry, if we have another dry spring like we did last year, I will consider it. I will earth up the leaves as they start growing. And earthing up, you tend to do more for main crop potatoes, really. You don't necessarily have to do them for early potatoes, but it does protect the foliage in case there is a late frost, and it does help protect those developing potatoes from turning green. First early potatoes, they take about 10 to 12 weeks until they're ready to dig up. And when I do dig them up, there'll be more potatoes growing in other places of the allotments. So we will be in potatoes this year yet again. The other thing that I need to do today is take care of all of these blackberries, including the trellis. You can see that they're growing out over the pathway, so I need to make this path passable again. And also I need to cut out the dead wood. Thornless blackberries, they only fruit on second year wood. So the canes that grew last year will produce this year's fruit. And the canes that fruited last year, which are still there, they're dead, so they need to be removed. If you accidentally cut all of your canes off, then you won't get any fruit this year, but you will get lots of fresh growth and you could get berries next year. You can also see that my trellis that I built some years ago is angling a bit, and that's because this post second in has rotted off at the ground. Whenever you put wood in the ground, especially if it's untreated, it will rot. That's normal. And in a vegetable garden, you'll find that with posts, you'll find that with raised beds, and it is really just something that is part of the gardening experience. You do have to replace them from time to time. Nothing is really permanent in the garden, especially in the vegetable garden. You can tell which are canes that grew last year and which ones are the ones you need to remove, because the ones you need to remove are looking pretty dead, pretty desiccated. They kind of break easily. It's really clear when you get down to the ground, you can see that this is living, that's not. And then you can be pretty sure that you're not going to make too many mistakes, if any. Ooh, it is getting so warm. It honestly feels like early summer. It does not feel like March. I have to keep reminding myself. But by the time you see this video, it will be April, and I will actually be in Germany. I'm going on my first proper trip away from the island since 2019, or maybe early 2020. And I'm a little bit anxious about it, but I'm visiting a friend who is a gardening enthusiast, and she's a balcony gardener, so I will try to get some video of her garden, so her balcony garden, while I'm there. But in the meantime, I've also taken my first harvest from the allotment in this year. So we've got purple sprouting broccoli, and we have sprouted kale. And when it comes to kale or other brassicas that start to bolt in their second year, you can eat their flower heads, that's what these are, just like you would broccoli. So these are a really tasty treat. I'm gonna enjoy that tonight as a side dish. Thanks so much for watching this look at the allotment garden in March, now going into April. And I will see you next week for another video, most likely from the home garden.